Welcome everyone to the Tasmanian accessibility community. We are so excited tonight to be having Doug McGinn and Amelia Dowe here from the University of Tasmania to be speaking to us about their No Mouse in the House workplace challenge. Doug McGinn has worked in disability services at the University of Tasmania since 1991, and yet he still finds his work very rewarding and often states that every student he works with is different. Doug is blind and uses a combination of JAWS text reader and Zoom text screen enlargement. He is heavily reliant on keyboard shortcuts, and like all of us, does get frustrated at times when systems are updated and shortcut keys change. Doug was very excited to be part of the No Mouse in the House workplace challenge and was impressed with the enthusiasm of all participants. So I'm very excited to hear all about that. Amelia Dowe has spent 14 years working in universities to support the success of students in a range of ways. Most recently, this has included a focus on online learning and accessible digital environments. She is the co-convener of the Tasmanian chapter of EPHEA and loves finding ways to make practical growth towards goals of equity and inclusion. And I'm so excited to have them both here tonight to present about their workplace challenge and having more digital accessibility in the workplace. So I will hand over to both of those lovely people to speak to you now.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's so lovely to see you all. And thanks so much for such a nice introduction, Rosie. I'm actually wearing the same scarf right now as I was in the headshot photo that I sent on. So, yeah. So we've got our greeting slide. Sorry, that just went a bit quickly. We've already done that, so we'll skip over that. I'm going to chat and then Doug will interrupt me because I don't have my, I've got a different screen set up to usual, so I don't have my run sheet with me. So please, Doug, start talking when we've agreed it's time for you to talk.
Yep, all good. Thank you.
Yeah. So in this little session, we'll talk about the No Mouse in the House event. We'll talk about the aims of the event setup, the experiences of the event from participants and what it was like for us being part of it. And we're really interested to hear from you. Well, we'll have Q&A time, hopefully. You'll have some questions. But we're also interested to know about similar initiatives where you are or other ideas for increasing digital accessibility awareness and skills in the workplace or wherever you happen to be.
And Amelia, can I just make a comment? You are always very good, similar to Rosie, that any information that's going up on the overheads, you are talking to those points. So we're not missing out on anything. Thanks, Amelia.
No worries. Yeah, and I will say that when I put these slides together, I went to a lot of effort to find pictures of cats and mice and keyboards. So I'll describe each one of those when they come up.
Thank you.
The first question is like, why do an event about digital accessibility? And because there's so much information out there, why bother doing something like this instead of just sending people off to learn on their own or that kind of thing? We thought it'd be a good idea to do something around on International Day of People with Disabilities last year and to try and harness the enthusiasm that I was seeing in the workplace. I'm part of a few different groups at the uni, one in particular that's focused on learning technologies so I was going to say learning technologies for education. Of course they are. Lots of discussion there about wanting to make things accessible and people not really knowing what to do next. So we wanted to sort of harness that enthusiasm and build on it and make sure that people had some company and support while they went and learnt that new thing. People care a lot about it, but they also it's a huge area, as everyone here knows. There's so much to learn. I have a huge amount to learn myself, and we just thought it might be more successful if people aren't doing it on their own. And likewise, we thought it's a good opportunity to build connections. So you're not feeling like a lonely accessibility advocate somewhere in your whatever work area of the workplace you happen to be in. Find other people who care about that stuff too, and yeah, hopefully build some connections. We also wanted to make it a way that people could develop some skills, and so it could be hopefully a meaningful professional development activity. And sometimes when you do that, you do need a little bit of a push rather than just scrolling through and reading something and clicking on a few things, actually being having that peer pressure to sit down and do the thing at the time. Yeah, would you say, is there anything else you would say about that, Doug?
No, it was so we had people that had huge differences in what they knew about accessibility. We had novices all the way through to people like Amelia and Adrian, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I think it was a good way to bring people together. Obviously, the university is spread, Sydney, Burnie, Launceston, and having an event like this was a way of actually bringing people together. Um, at the time, but also following up with a Teams channel as well. Thanks, Amelia.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Oh, and so there was one final point on this slide, and the one other reason why we wanted to do something like this was to try and surface some accessibility issues out there in our systems. We're aware there's a lot of stuff, but if we've got a whole lot of people focusing on one thing at one time, we thought hopefully we'll be able to find trouble spots and hopefully do something about it.
And Amelia, there was one comment that I made at the AdSet webinar and during our session, and I've got to actually let James Newton take the responsibility for this. James taught me 15 years ago that if we are procuring software, then we should be asking the vendor to present it without his mouse, without their mouse. Shouldn't say his, sorry, without their mouse. And that was something James, said to me years ago, that the vendor should be able to use shortcut keys. And when a lot of the computer nerds heard that, they thought, wow, that's a great way to ensure accessibility. Thanks,
Yeah,
Emma.
I think that really resonated with a lot of people. I've heard a few people afterwards talk about that, actually.
Mm.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Okay, and so why no mouse? Now, I've got a picture of a insanely cute mouse facing away and looking all lonely. It's like, why no mouse? Why leave me out? Well, it's a really practical entry point to digital accessibility. It's pretty well, most computers have a mouse, and majority of people, that's how we rely on that to navigate around. And so it's a really practical entry point. You don't need any special skills to be trying this out. And it's a good way to introduce the WCAG guidelines to people, the web content accessibility guidelines, and just say, well, this is one part of it. And we did introduce this to people because, as Doug said, we had a really wide range of people joining it, the challenge. And so those people who are really technologically proficient and great coders, they were keen to learn more about some of the details and say, oh, this is part of 2.1, the keyboard accessible success area in the web content accessibility guidelines. Yeah, so a good way to introduce that, and just that it's important for many reasons. If visual navigation is not an option, if there's motor impacts, or you've just lost your mouse, or it's broken, or something else like that. Other reasons might be that, and this came out as well, there were some people interested in doing the challenge to prevent repetitive strain injuries and similar, to save time. Some tasks are more precise when you're not using a mouse, and yeah, it's just handy when your mouse breaks. So there's a lot of reasons why people might want to join the challenge. So they might join for looking for time-saving things, and then you can sort of piggyback onto that and learn about accessibility at the same time. So I did want to talk about the event setup. It doesn't seem sort of like it should be a big deal, but I think all of the small details probably helped us. Here we've got it's not that relevant, but I was just so happy to find all these pictures. I've got a cat having a nap on a keyboard with no mouse in sight. So we're sort of at that point. So we had Zoom backgrounds that people could put in the back of their when they're in a meeting to tell people that they were doing the challenge. And so beforehand, people were using it to sort of promote the event. And we did get a few people signing up because they'd seen that. And the idea was while you were doing it, you could have it up there and say, I'm sorry, I might be a bit hopeless today. I'm learning something new. We had that in email signatures as well. So our marketing team worked with us to set all of that up. We ran a training session ahead of time as well and made an A4 survival guide for the wall. So we sent out some materials first, did the training session, adapted the survival guide after the training session because there were a few extra things. And then again, actually after the final session. We also had an opt-in Teams channel for moral and technical support during the event, which it ended up being quite a feature of the event, really. Just because it was so friendly and helpful.
So Amelia, the other thing we had as well was in our signatures, we also put some extra information in the signatures where people could register from there. We fell across a team colleague, Adrian, and Amelia and I thought we knew a fair bit about shortcut keys, but Adrian, who doesn't have a disability as such, he is the head of the room scheduling, academic scheduling system at the university, and he actually said to us that his team do approximately a million data entries a year.
Keystrokes, I think. Yeah.
Keystrokes for his team of only 5 or 10, and he relies on shortcut keys a lot, and he is very, very proficient, and he knew a hell of a lot about all the different platforms and the shortcut keys themselves. So although Amelia drove the sessions, he was really our main liaison in the Teams channel for people who may have had any issues, and helping us with the survival guide, trying to work out what's the most common, although I think most of us know which the most common shortcut keys are within Zoom, for example. Thanks, Amelia.
Yeah, Adrian was absolutely amazing. And it was just sharing the event in the different channels. We had, the formal stuff through the staff portal, but I shared it in all of the professional groups I'm part of at work. And I think there was just a technology community of practice that I shared it there. And Adrian seemed interested, was excited to write back. And it's like, oh, you seem excited. Would you like to join us? And yes, and it was hugely more successful because of him being there. And I think it was with one of the reasons why we wanted to do this challenge was to build connections and find other sort of digital accessibility allies. And yeah, it was great for that. And
having somebody who doesn't work in the accessibility field, I think also shone out a little bit as well, and made a difference. It wasn't just us preaching to the converted; it was somebody else from outside our area. Thanks, Amelia.
Yeah, and brought in a few different people from his team as well then.
Yes.
Which was really cool. Yeah, so I was saying that we had our Zoom backgrounds. On the screen now, I've got the background that marketing made for us. So it's got the University of Tasmania logo and inclusion, diversity and equity, and a little no mouse in the house thing that would sit sort of beside to the, I don't know, left or right of your head, depending, I don't know. And the idea was that this would be a template that we could use for other types of events as well. We should do something like that. There's also an EFIA logo, which I will explain about a little bit later on. But we generally had this little design that we tried to use really consistently across all of our communications. Whether or not it made a difference, I'm not sure, but it was sort of helpful to have a bit of cohesion to the event, I think. So EFIA is actually the Equity Practitioners in Higher Education Australasia. And as Rosie said in the introduction, I'm a co-convener of the Tasmanian chapter, and we get chapter funding to do little activities to support equity initiatives. And so we used our chapter funding to give prizes, which really helped. I think this is one of those things too. I think in every workplace there'll be different ways or different things that you can leverage to make an event happen. And we were lucky in this scenario that we had this EFIA support and connections, but it does make me, I suppose in different workplaces there'll be different ways that you can do this. And I suppose that's one of the things I'll be interested to hear about later, like where those sort of affordances, is that the word, are in different places. But anyway, I mean, we could give some prizes like Marathon Mouse Avoider, Accessibility Ally Supreme. We had a Learning Luminary, Application Adventurer, Shortcut Sorcerer, and some special mentions. So it was really nice to be able to just acknowledge all the cool stuff we saw happening during the event. Having said that, in some ways it was my low point because I just wanted to give everyone a prize and we couldn't, and that was really sad. But anyway,
So, Amelia,
yeah.
I think as some of us around this table know, the Microsoft products have consistency of shortcut keys. Zoom is wonderful, Teams is reasonable, but then if you start going out into other databases which the university use, I take my hat off to those people who really got out there and tried to play around in other areas. And that's where Adrian was able to help them with some of those other databases. I think we are very accustomed to the software that we use. Going into other areas, quite often they are quite visually intuitive, and very obvious things will be seen on the screen, which a blind user won't see. Thanks, Amelia.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Yeah, and actually the not Marathon Mouse Avoider, the Shortcut Sorcerer. So that was,
Yes.
no, wait, that was the one, no, Application Adventurer. So one of our student advisors really challenged themselves and used some of our really inaccessible systems for managing student records and communications, which was amazing in two ways. That firstly, they did that, but also we were talking about the whole thing of surfacing issues. And of course, they found a few trouble areas where they just couldn't keep going without a mouse, just with their keyboard, and noted it. And towards the end of last year, or maybe earlier this year, there were some discussions with the vendor and they're asking for different issues with the system. And so we already had that information ready to go. Like, well, this part isn't keyboard accessible. Not sure if anything happened with it, but it's just so fantastic to have that documented somewhere and be able to share it quickly.
Mm.
Yeah. So we had, that was the other part of it. You could sign up as a team, or you could sign up as an individual. So we did have 4 teams sign up and 35 individuals. And from a really wide range of work areas. I think we had people from the Tasmanian Policy Institute, from obviously timetabling, the student support areas that you'd expect, but we had academics and professionals and all sorts from everywhere. It was really fun.
We also had a Pro Vice Chancellor, and as we know, the university is steeped in stupid hierarchical areas, but it was actually good to see somebody having a go from the higher ups, and I think that's a good thing. So it was actually seeping into awareness elsewhere, which was good.
Yeah, and I think it was extra good because something like this, most people are doing it, well, a lot of people are doing it because they don't really know anything about it. And our message was sort of come and learn with us. Maybe it'll be hard and you'll make mistakes, or maybe you'll look silly because you won't be able to use your keyboard when you need to. But that's okay, we'll do it together. And so I think that was the extra great thing about having a Pro Vice Chancellor involved, because like he looked silly too. Like, we all at certain points during the day really struggled and couldn't do stuff. So I really appreciated that.
Yep.
Yeah. We had about 20 people in the Teams channel, and it was really busy all day. I think, Doug, you were saying it's one of the few times
I,
you've had to
I had to,
silence a chat.
I had to mute the chat, and I know Emma showed me how to do that on text the other day for the first time, but I learned how to do it on Teams that day because it was just pinging away too much. Yep, and obviously Teams is a bit harder to use than other formats, but it showed the level of enthusiasm that we had so many people participating at that time, and it was all extremely positive. Yep.
Yeah, and people could nominate the hour that they wanted to do. So it was just sign up for an hour to not use your mouse, um, which I maybe didn't explain properly at the start. I've just realized. Anyway, sign up for an hour without your mouse, but any hour during the day. So that meant any time during that whole day, people needed support. And there were, yeah, especially Adrian from timetabling was working overtime, definitely in that. We set up a survey to get responses after the event, just to hear about people's experiences. And we had 21 responses to that, and we used that to give prizes and, yeah, work out where those accessibility trouble spots are. And to share some feedback with you, we've got some written feedback here. So the first one, I just need to move something on my slide. So someone said, thank you for organising this brilliant exercise. Living in inverted commas, a limited version of the barriers that a person who could not use a mouse experiences was very effective in highlighting just how important accessible design is and how much of a barrier a single inaccessible feature presents to someone who relies on that being universally accessible. And they said a few other things too. And another person who said, big thank you to the team that organised this. It was such a fun and difficult at times challenge. And I feel like I've been really awakened both to the important causes, but also to the potential of improving my digital literacy and efficiency. The group chat or Brains Trust in the Teams thing was such a lovely vibe. And I really appreciated how helpful everyone was, especially Adrian. Big shout out for fixing my taskbar dilemmas. As well as that, just a few other sort of, other outcomes of the event. So people had a nice time and learnt something. We met some new accessibility allies, which is really great. And I've noticed I've been in a few other like training sessions or meetings where it used to be me always putting my hand up and asking annoying accessibility questions. Or maybe a couple of others, but it feels like there's more people asking those questions now. And that's exciting to see. It may or may not be related to this, but in general, it's nice to see the questions being asked more. There was, one specific point where I know of where it had immediate impact on course accessibility, because one of the people who took part in the challenge was responsible for doing a lot of the coding in some of the short courses, and he realised what was going on with the code for the accordions, where in the thing he was working on, it's like, oh wait, this doesn't work. He had the coding skills to fix it, so now that course has accessible accordions, which is really exciting. Yeah, and just generally, we've noticed, there was increased awareness and interest. We have had quite a few, there was quite a lot of feedback after the event saying, sharing ideas for doing it next time and just asking, can we please do it again in December this year? So, okay.
And I think one of the things was we were very Windows oriented. And I think David, who was the person who was that course advisor, not advisor, but uh,
Educational technologist.
thank you. He
Yeah.
did bring us back to say, look, don't forget about Apple. And he was also running through Apple shortcuts as well. Most of them are very similar, if not the same, but it was an important note to make. Yeah.
Yeah, David was very important. Yeah. One final point on this slide. I forgot to say, the picture on this slide is of a cat looking at a computer mouse very wistfully. Not allowed to touch. Okay, so other universities. Oh, so I've been in touch with past colleagues from another university I used to work at who are going to run their own version of the event, but they've got some other ideas about things that they could do with it, which was exciting to hear. Like they were going to do a skills tree with it, so that when people are developing their skills in this, they could sort of work towards development in a more uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Structured sort of way. So there would be different elements that you might want to master and then move on to the next thing. The next thing is you can color in the bits that you're up to. And they were going to set up a computer for students to have a go at the same thing in the library. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Yes. So that was a big surprise, actually. Cool to hear. Is there anything else in that I've forgotten,
Amelia,
Doug?
ADSET, which is the National Clearinghouse for Education and Training, which is actually hosted by the university, but is national, Australia and New Zealand. We ran a webinar through that. The training session that we did at UTAS, obviously, it wasn't a lockdown webinar, so Adrian was able to show people a whole bunch of shortcut keys. Obviously, as we all know, when we go to a webinar, quite often our shortcut keys don't actually work because we're locked out of certain aspects. So that was a little bit different. However, at the convention I went to at the weekend, two different university representatives are both taking into this as well, Amelia, Monash
Oh.
and Deakin. So I think there are other universities that are certainly wanting to doing wanting to do something that's, practical but also cheap. Because we don't have money for lots of PD and stuff, and it's a practical something that's we can get people interested in. Thanks, Amelia.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah. I think I think anyway, I'll ramble later. I'll just finish reading what's on this slide. So, thoughts for the future. Do it again, hopefully. People were talking about maybe doing like different types of challenges or like level up challenges, like turning the screen off as well. We'll see. Do you know, maybe people want to go for a new prize. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I did talk about capturing these accessibility trouble spots, and I think that's something that we could do in a more formal way, so that we could have some kind of central issues, like a register where we could be sharing it with our colleagues and with ITS more easily. This was just really like I had a list of the stuff and sharing it when it's relevant, but yeah, we can really build on that, I think. Potentially expand to other topics. I think part of the reason why it worked is because it was so focused. We'll see. It'd be good to try and recognise it as professional development as well. We might need a few more things to be added into it for that to happen, but we'll see. And yeah, find out what others are doing in this space. Because I think, apart from anything else, it just showed how keen people are to learn and to apply their learning. And yeah, it'd be great to try some other stuff.